What's going on, guys? This is Martyrs Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls PvP. Alright guys, we're back at it once again with another Battle of the Build series. And this is Volume 3 of the series. Volume 1 featured Battle of the Build matches versus Pyromancers. And actually that was a two-part series. Volume 2 featured myself against Godly's Chameleon Faith Mage, what I would call it. And now we have good old Brody here. And first and foremost, shout out to Brody. He contacted me and he said, hey dude, I kind of have a cool idea for a build. And actually, it is indeed a very good build. And I hope by the end of this video, some of you will be motivated to kind of experiment with some of the combinations and miracles that good old Brody has displayed during this Volume 3 of the series. Now, he is using basically a pure spear build. Now, what exactly do I mean by pure spear? I mean pure spear. Right, not only is he using obviously the wing spear and the dragon slayer spear, but he's also making use of the spear miracles. Right, the lightning spear, the great lightning spear, and the sunlight spear, which is the strongest, and which, I mean, based upon what I've seen, can inflict like 900 damage. Did you guys just notice that? Right, not only did I jump into it, but you guys got a chance to see how strong that spear can be. Right, so now his build is not limited to the casting of these spears. Right, he also makes use of the sunlight blade miracle with his wing spear, and I believe is a wing spear. I don't think it's the partisan, nor do I think it's a pike. So I'm thinking it is the wing spear. And when you when you make use of those combinations, I mean, this build is definitely a force to be reckoned with. Now, let's kind of talk about some, pros and cons. From what I have seen, the cons to this build seem to be low vitality. Right? And actually, I would say low vitality, and perhaps the 0 poise. I think he has, I'm pretty sure he has 0 poise. Now, if it were me, did you guys just see how strong that was? Now, if it were me, I would have equipped the wolf ring in addition to one other piece. One piece that would net me at least 53 poise. And actually, I don't really know how much vitality he has, but I'm thinking he only has around, 1,500. Now, he didn't really give me the information on the build. He kind of just gave me an explanation, but he didn't give me the specs on it. Alright, so just by judging, how much damage I'm able to inflict, I'm thinking he has somewhere around 1,600. Now, I really think he needs poise for this build, and I really think that if he had poise, it would be a lot more difficult to tangle with this build. And this kind of attests to how poise can make a difference, and here's why. In some of the cases, I am able to not only stagger him, but also follow up with attacks. Right, and I think although he's good at evading, and although he has toggle escaped a few times, those blows can definitely hurt. Those staggers hurt. Now, granted, I'm not saying he needs to go all the way with the housewife, with the full 77 poise. I'm not saying that, but at the same time, I think 53 for his particular build would be sufficient. Now, another good thing, he's making use of what appears to be the Dark Moon Bow. And I'm thinking it's a Dark Moon Bow. knowing that he needs to have at least 50 for that sunlight spear. And I know most of you guys know that the Dark Moon Bow is it scales with faith, and not only does it scale with faith, but it goes very well with the moonlight arrows, which is also magic based as far as damage is concerned. Now, those are the weaknesses: the vitality and the poise, from what I can see. Now, as far as the strengths, I think this build has a lot of strengths. Number one, it has the advantage of using the spears. And I'm not really talking about the miracles yet. I'm just talking about the spears in hand. He's utilizing the Dragon Slayer spear. He's also using what appears to be the wing spear. Right, and I think that's a good combination. Mainly because the Dragon Slayer spear is strong enough by itself. The wing spear is good with 40 dexterity. But you pair that along with the sunlight blade. I mean, that buff, you're doing some horrendous, actually I can't even say horrendous, some high speed damage. Right? Because, you know, buff's already hard enough, but you have a buff with a basically fully maxed out weapon, you know, with the 40 dexterity. And now somebody may say, hey dude, how do you know how much dexterity he has? Well, one reason why I think he has a lot of dexterity, and I would say somewhere between 40 and 45, is because look how fast he's able to cast those sunlight spears. If you guys are paying attention to it or have experienced it yourself, you guys can attest to the fact that to the extent that you have low dexterity, I mean, those spears come out rather slow. I mean, really slow. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many people are turned off by using those miracles. Because, you know, I don't know about anyone else's experience, but at least in my own, I really do not see a lot of people experimenting with these spears, despite the fact that, you know, they cause a lot of damage. Now, one good thing about good old Brody, he's paying attention to his environment. And, you know, what exactly do I mean by that? Well, if you notice, when I'm on the ground, he'll throw his, you know, he'll aim his spears at me. However, when I'm in the water, he will aim his spears at the water, which is a good thing. Because even though he may not hit me directly with the spear on land, I can be damaged when, you know, once he tosses his spear into the water. You can still receive damage from that. So that's pretty much, man, that Dragon Slayer spear sucks, right? Well, not sucking for him, it sucks for me, right? Anyone who has to fight against a spear, you're definitely in for a fight, right? Because those spears, even though, you know, they kind of, you guys notice that? Man, that's good. That's a good build. Now, one thing I like to point out is I really appreciate Brody for his performance. You know, his awesome performance and display on this build. Now, the reason why I say that is because when I first introduced the Battle of the Build series, I actually got a lot of feedback, right? But the thing about it is, the feedback that I got, for the most part, was a lot of people explaining to me, you know, what the build was, what the build consisted of, the pros and cons of the build, and even would give me a, you know, a Mugen Monkey link for me to see what the items and whatnot were. But when it was time to, you know, let the rubber meet the road, I mean, a lot of the guys would say, well, dude, I mean, quite honestly, I'm not the one to demonstrate anything. I'm just telling you that it's a good idea. Well, guess what, guys? This Battle of the Build series should rely not only on an idea that you're thinking up in your head, but it should also be drafted from your own experience. Right? Because in other words, anyone can sit up here and think up a build, right? it's another thing to not only think it up, but to experiment with it and to say, you know what, I can vouch for that. I mean, not only did I create a build, but it's pretty good because I've had a lot of good success with it. So that's what I'm looking for with regard to the Battle of the Build series, right? Because there's a lot of guys who just want to tell me, you know, what a build is and what it's made of, but they do not want to demonstrate it, right? So another thanks to good old Brody for putting off a really good performance. Now, one thing about those spears, because I'm not really faced against them in a lot of cases, sometimes it's hard to kind of get the timing with them. Right? And actually I've played PvP'd a lot, but at the same time, there's still a lot of cases. Exhibit A. Right? There's still a lot of cases where I get caught with them. And for many reasons, you know. Sometimes you may run out of stamina, you know, and maybe you can't roll, or maybe you can't, you know, continue to, do whatever you need to do to avoid the attacks. You know, or maybe you're in the middle of a cast yourself, you know, and you're hit with the lightning. Maybe you're kind of switching off between the bows and the weapon, something I have come to do a lot lately. And actually that's when those spears come in handy. Now, what would I do different about his build? You know, honestly, the only thing that I would do different about his build is, now I don't know how many attunement slots he has. I'm assuming that he has 5. Now, what is that assumption based off? Well, the Sunlight Spear Miracle requires 2 slots. You need 2 slots to be able to use that. The Great Lightning Spear is 1 slot, right? So that would be 3. And then the regular Lightning Spear. And then after the regular lightning spear, he has the sunlight blade. Now, one of 2 things that I would do. Either one, I would replace the sunlight spear with 1 iteration of the Wrath of the Gods. Okay. Or what I would do is, and actually, that's probably it. I think that would be the only thing that I would do. Because think about it. The Sunlight Spear, which is the strongest, give you 5 casts. The Great Lightning Spear, I think, gives you 10 casts, if I'm not sure. So that's a total of 15 casts. You don't really need the regular Lightning Spear, which, I don't know, probably gives you 15 casts. I'm not really sure because I rarely use it. So I would use 2 of those spear casts, a Wrath of the Gods, especially in his case, seeing that he doesn't really have a lot of poise, right? And since he doesn't have a lot of poise, a lot of guys like me would tend to kind of keep the distance relatively close in an effort to, you know, avoid those spears. And when that happens, that's when the Wrath of the Gods would definitely come in handy to back me off and maintain a distance. So, I don't know. As far as what I've seen, that is basically the only thing that I would change. I would change, I would probably add Wrath of the Gods, right? I would increase my poise, and I would also probably increase the vitality. The only thing about this build is it is pretty hard, from what I can see, to maintain the 120 standard or to stay at or near it. Now, I asked him what level this build was, and he said it was a level 130. Right now, I don't know how he kind of put everything together, but at 130 I think is a good build, because you can still get a lot of PvP in at 130, because I know a lot of guys that kind of PvP at 130. I used to PvP at 130. Now I'm kind of like at 125, and 125 just so happens to be my personal standard. Now, this guy has been trolling us, I don't know, probably about 5 matches of this series, right? This is the first time, well, actually, this is just the first time that I caught it on camera, and it was mainly because it was in the middle of our match. But that guy kind of been trolling us pretty hard, and you know, I kind of have another 1v1 against him because he just doesn't get it. I mean, obviously we're in a 1v1 situation and he just wants to interrupt. Right, so it is what it is. We're going to have to go ahead and start this particular match over. Alright, so we're back at it. Go ahead and Flask. Goes ahead and pops his humanity. Go ahead and fire up the green blossom. And we're back at it. Now, unfortunately that troll will return. Right, you can't stop those guys because they just seem to be everywhere. But, you know, comes with the PvP. Right, some guys just kind of get a lot of enjoyment out of doing things like that, which is all good. Right, because everybody have different definitions of fun. Now, since we're talking about the Battle of the Builds, let me just go ahead and explain my build in the event that some of you guys are not familiar. This is my high endurance warrior build. Right? Now, if you guys read the description on the warrior, then you would know that one good thing about the warrior is that it can use a myriad of weapons. Right, it's not restricted to strength weapons, nor is it restricted to dexterity weapons. And because of that, the warrior should be pretty proficient in the usage of many weapons. And this is what I'm trying to do, which is why I've been using this build a lot. I'm trying to get proficient in many weapons other than the standard greatsword and katanas. Now, I mean, I really don't use the katana that much myself. You know, I've never really been into the katanas. I mean, even before I really started making the observation that far too many people use it, I just never kind of been into it. You know, but, you know, a lot of people do, which is cool. I can only laugh when I get hit by those because it's just amazing when you see how much damage that spear can inflict. Alright. Boy, I love that black iron set. It looks bossy, doesn't it? Alright, and speaking of katanas, I'm going to go ahead and experiment with it. Now, I can't really say experiment. I've used it, you know, when I was kind of in the process of trying to figure out what weapon would be best for me. So I've used it in the past, but I'm just not really into the katanas. You know, a lot of people are really good with the hack and slash type deal. And, you know, I can hack and slash, but it's just not my cup of tea. Alright, so I have an invader. And see, there's the troll. There's the guy. And actually this person had invaded the both of us more than what is seen in this particular series. Right? But, I mean, my thing is, why give this guy too much attention? Right? Because I didn't want to take the attention away from the Battle of the Build series by showcasing this creep. Right? But, I mean, giving this guy the benefit of the doubt, at least in this case, you know, I was by myself, right? So he probably said to himself, hey dude, well, he's by himself, I'm doing my job as I should be, I'm invading the guy, no big deal. Which is fair, right? So I'm not really talking about in this case, I'm talking about the other cases where we're obviously fighting, and here comes this guy interrupting. Right, so good old Brody was kind of ticked off at that guy trolling us as well, so he went on ahead and stepped in. We kind of tighten up these grass trees, who, you know, in a lot of cases are sometimes tougher than some of these invaders. I mean, those grass trees are no joke. Man. Alright, go ahead and do our gestures. Grass it up. Time for battle. So yeah, as I've said, you know, I really like this build, and I think I'm going to be using it a lot. One reason is because I absolutely love the Black Iron set. You know, for a lot of the guys who, maybe you've watched me from the beginning, you would know that I really like the Black Iron set. I used to rock the Black Iron set a lot, even when I used to use the medium roll when I first started uploading. Right? Now, a lot of people prefer the Giant set. Granted, it has the most defense in the game. And, granted, it has a lot of poise. But I don't really care about that. I just really think that Black Iron set really looks bossy. Alright. Kind of almost caught him with that parry. And I thought I should have, because the timing looked to be right. But it is what it is. I'll probably catch him eventually. And those fire arrows are doing pretty good damage. And actually what I'm using is I'm using fire arrows with the Chaos composite bow. Right, because the downside to this build is I can't take full advantage of investing points into my dexterity or strength. Right, because all of those points have been invested into endurance. And that's why I have the fast roll with this build. Alright, now we're just experimenting with the high-speed dagger, getting some dagger action. And actually, before I continue to talk, I should probably give some pros and cons with regard to my build. Right, because in the Battle of the Build series, it features two builds, mine and the other. Now, pros and cons. Pros, in my opinion, is that I can use a wide variety of weapons. I can switch armors since I have so much endurance, right? Because I'm using the Havel's Ring. And I think this particular build has like 75 endurance. I think that's it, right? I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know the endurance is up there. And this is why I'm able to have two weapons. Well, actually three, right? Because I have the composite bow and a primary and secondary right-hand weapon. And fast roll with the heavy armor. Right, so the Havel's Ring and the high endurance allow me to do that. So, I'm able to switch armors in the event that I want to use some of the heavier weapons, like maybe the Murakumo or something like that. I still have enough endurance paired with the Havel's Ring to perhaps use a medium armor set, but still be able to wield some of the stronger weapons. Another advantage is that I'm able to wield both dexterity and strength weapons. One of the things that come with using a warrior build. Now, one of the downsides, let's see, I don't know. I mean, I also have high vitality, so I can't really say that I have low vitality. My vitality is at least 50. I think I do have 50 vitality. And with the Ring of Favor and Protection, that would give me around 1800 vitality, which is good. Right, that's kind of gives you some room to get attacked a few times, right? Even if you got some high-speed backstab fishers going on, or even some guys who's using a Hornet, right? 1800 is pretty well. Now, will 1800 be sufficient if you're kind of, Black Knight Great Axe with the Hornet Ring? Probably not with a Black Knight Great Axe, but some of these others is pretty good. Right? And I was able to land a good parry right there, and there's our troll. And this time he gets it, right? So shout out to the troll. What's up, dude? I'm glad you didn't interrupt this time. Right? He just kind of sat back and checked things out. And I think he figured it out after he interrupted us a few times. Right? So shout out to you, dude, with your little high speed. What kind of shield is that? Is that the Tarkus shield? Doesn't look like the shield of Artorias. What kind of shield is that? I can't really tell. Oh, it looks like the Silver Knight shield. Either the Silver or Black Knight shield. And actually, I make him pay for the times that he interrupted us in the past. Right, so all you honor police out there, I know what I did. You don't have to give me a long speech on how I chain BS them. It is what it is. Alright, back to Brody. Now that Dark Moon bow is pretty strong. And the good thing about it is I don't even really think that it scales that much with endurance. I think you get most of the benefit with having a higher faith stat. And I was actually trying to parry him, see that he was swinging as much as he did, but I wasn't able to get that parry off. But, you know, I've kind of been getting a lot of practice with the parries. If you guys are familiar with the channel, then you guys would know that I've kind of been on this thing about trying to improve my blind parries. For which, I think in the 2 weeks that I've kind of dedicated time to practice with it, I think I've gotten a little better. You know, I've definitely been able to execute more parries than what I've done in the past. For the most part, my parries were limited to setup parries, right? But I'm starting to study these guys' movements more, and I'm starting to notice, you know, times that, well, not all the time, but sometimes when people are attacking, when they choose not to attack, and that's what's been helping me out with that, right? So, you know, as I've kind of mentioned before, because I've been able to get better with the parries and some of my other variations of both offensive and defensive attacks, this is why I really don't find the need to do as many backstabs as I've done in the past. Nice. Double KO. Alright guys, this is the last match of Volume 3. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'd like to offer my thanks and appreciation once again to good old Brody for putting forth an awesome showcase of his build, the Spear build. Alright guys, until next time, Martyr's Brigade is out.